Alright, so I made a video on the swirl mugs as requested by a few students, and it's kind of consistent. I get 3 or 4 and I have to show it 3 or 4 times throughout the day just how to throw it. So made a video on the trio of spiral mugs. We did the one pushing out from the inside. We did the one with 2 fingers where the outside finger was above the inside hand, or excuse me, outside hand or finger was below instead of like you normally throw. It's the opposite, going up. That's this one. And then the outside swirl here with a smooth rib. So I'm gonna do the one, because this is the most complicated one in my opinion to trim. That's why I'm making a trimming video about it. Hopefully you know how to trim a basic foot. If you don't, that's a good place to learn. But you'll see as soon as I spin this. So I've got it locked into my little GIF and grip. This is why it's important to have the top part really straightened out, because you're really distorting or you're really contorting and altering the shape, and it throws the top off. You smooth the top back out. This is where that comes into play. Also why I don't take the swirl all the way to the top, because then that would make this even more complicated than it already is. So you'll see it when I spin it. Not only does it have that little Shakira spiral to it, but it's also got the bottom part here is going to wobble a bit. So this is where I learned to make an inside and outside foot. See, it's got a little wobble to it, a little sway. So I'm going to start by just really going ham up here. I don't want to push too hard. I'm going to be gentle with it. Make sure I lock it in a little tighter. You also don't want to do this when it's too wet, because it'll smash your wet piece into a triangle shape, which could be cool, creatively, but this is a little drier than I was hoping for. That's why it's stuttering and vibrating a little bit. But once I get in on a little bit of clay, it'll smooth out. It's going to be a little bit more wet on the inside. I can feel it every time I hit a dry spot. It like catches. That's why I have this counterbalance of this hand over here. As I take it off, it goes for a dive. Oh, put it back on. We're keeping this. You can see now, foolproof. Wasn't expecting it to go like that, but yeah, foolproof of why I have that counterbalance on the other side. Start calling my channel Keeping It Real with Smith over here. Locked in again. Alright, here we go. I'm gonna have a whole, have to start doing bloopers reels. Yeah, I'm not taking that left hand to show you this time. And yeah, I want to trim down as far as I can without hitting the swirl itself. And luckily, yeah, that wasn't a catastrophe as far as falling off. I got one little wound I'll clean up with a sponge. And I've been on one lately with the bloopers here. Try not to do too many of those, but we'll carry on. So you see I'm going in pretty far on this one. I don't want to go too far and make my foot too narrow, because this is going to be a functional piece. It'll be a mug. Throw a handle on this later. And when I was showing you the counter hand, I should have let go with the pressure here. Lesson learned. That counter hand as well also gets rid of, if these pieces were to fly around and like stick to the piece, it kind of removes those pieces. So you can already see like my wobble's still down here because I haven't touched that spot yet, but where I'm trimming is fairly close. And once I trim the foot, that'll compensate for all of that. So right there I'm starting to hit the swirl. So I'm going to go up and make this nice and clean using the straightness of the tool. Give it a nice flat. Now I'm ready to make the foot. So normally when I make feet for, let's say, a bowl or something, I just do the inside, but you'll see in a second that I'll have a foot that goes like this because this thing is so contorted and is so off. So first I'm going to start with the corner. I don't use it flat. Start with the corner first, make my line. Working my way in, now it's flat. Okay, use that corner, go back and forth. And of course, check it. It's getting pretty thin. Usually like to leave myself about a 1/4 inch, maybe sometimes 1/2 inch if I want a really deep foot, really accentuated foot. Catch that one, little scrap. So normally I would just trim that inside like that. Just be a nice clean foot, but you can see as it goes slowly, the foot goes. Because this outside line isn't even. And I know some people when they trim, the way I learned as well was to put my finger here and get a nice straight line. On this swirl mug, it would throw a heck of a loop or a wrench into a straight line. So I don't touch the piece itself other than my counterbalance. Sometimes I don't even counterbalance this, but I'm going to because I've had enough excitement on trimming here. So I'm just going to hold real still and I'm going to trim an outside foot here. Probably the most exciting trimming video I've ever made, at least for me anyway. Hope it is for you. Okay. Then once I trim, so now I've trimmed an inside foot and an outside foot. It's made it a little more even, still slightly off, so I'm going to correct that. But I also like to make a ravine for glazes. So I take the dole side, which here, of the ribbon tool, and I just press it in there. Sometimes I use a dole pencil. Then I'm going to just touch the foot slightly here. Again, holding still, not letting the clay move me around. Come from the inside here. So I've trimmed both the inside and the outside line to make 2 straight lines. So now no matter how much this piece is wiggling, as long as that bottom part's straight and this foot, I trimmed 2 straight lines. One on the outside, one on the inside. Then it's just cleanup time. We're pretty much there. If the clay is wet enough, which this one is a little more dry than I'd like, but sometimes I'll take my fingers and just dole that, maybe with a little bit of water. I don't like to add too much water when I trim because I trim particularly thin. You can hear it. Sounds like holding a piece of paper and flicking it. I've had times where I've dunked them in sinks because I trimmed them and didn't get to putting handles on them, left them out, and tried to reinitiate or reconstitute water, and then I flip it, set it on the foot, and it just caves in. So just be aware that is a possibility when you trim so thin. So now I've got that little bump there. It's kind of rounded, but I'm going to take this and machine it slightly. So I'm pressing this part against that foot, right in that little ravine I made, and just slowly rolling it into that shoulder. Make it nice and clean. This is really sharp, so glaze will kind of pull away or melt away as it turns to molten, so I just dole it slightly so that it runs down a little more. And there we have the swirl mug trimming. So that's my little wound that I had from my blooper there, but that one's ready to get a handle on it. Handle wise for the swirl mugs, I just find a place where it's a little more vacant, like over here, to where I have space for my fingers, and just adds to the aesthetics. I just take a look at each one individually and go from there. So that is the swirl mug. I'll trim these other two exactly the same way. Again, this one is a more complicated one, so of course I would say that after the blooper.